Hello and welcome again to How to Write Songs. I'm your host, Sam Mizell, and this week we have the man, the myth, the legend, Bart Millard, frontman of Mercy Me, writer of songs like I Can Only Imagine, Word of God Speak, Even If, and so many number one songs they're hard to count. Bringing us his songwriter journey and stories from the road, here's my friend, Bart Millard.
How about you?
Oh, trying to live in this ever-changing, crazy world of COVID-19 and crazy politics and the whole rest of it.
Yep, I hear you.
That's about the size. Have you guys been able to do any touring or anything? Or
No, sorry, I'm chewing my ice. Our last show, I think March 10th, and our next show, Lord willing, will be next April.
wow,
Yeah, so that's what we're hoping. We don't know if that holds true, but the good thing is we've had an album that we've been working on for, man, it feels like almost 2 years, and we've kind of, when the pandemic hit, we stretched it out just to have something to do, and so we're supposed to hand it in later this month, and so it's been good to have something to work on, that's for sure. Yeah, we bought a cabin 2 years ago out in Berry Farms. It's like an old cabin on 35 acres, and we bought it and started the process of turning it into a studio, and
cool.
the timing was perfect. So it's like, I feel like, if I'm not home, that's the only other place I am pretty much these days.
That's awesome. So did you hire an engineer, or did you bring in producers and stuff? Or
Yeah, we've got 3 different producers we're using on this album. We've written with at first we were like, if it was a producer / writer, then if I was writing with them, I'd have them kind of become the producer. And so we ended up with almost 10 different guys. And then it was like, it just came a cluster, like it was really on me. Like I by default kind of became the executive producer as far as lining stuff up and schedules. And I'm the worst at that. So I wasn't doing them a very good service. And so we kind of, in the middle of it, kind of called an audible, and there's Brown Bannister, Ted T, and a guy named Jordan Malowski who kind of stepped up, and they're kind of curating, producing, kind of wrangling it all in, so to speak, and wrapping it up with us. And so, yeah, it's been great so far. I mean, now it's been great. It was kind of like, once I got out of the way, it's been awesome.
So, yeah, working with Brown, didn't he kind of take a hiatus from producing? Didn't he do more education now or whatever?
Yeah, he runs the College of Arts Entertainment with Steve Taylor at Lipscomb. And so other than producing, his daughter, Ellie Holcomb, other than doing her stuff, he hasn't done a lot lately. And so we kind of persuaded him to kind of step back into it again. And we're having a blast. It's awesome.
That's great. He's a good dude, man.
Yeah. He's one of the best.
Really good dude. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for being a part of my series.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hooked on talking to people now and going,
yeah, no doubt.
Man, share me your stories. I feel like they're important. This happened to me the other day. We were in church and we sang like 3 or 4 songs that, they're okay,
Right.
And then What a Beautiful Name came on. And that's a really well-written song. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can tell the difference between somebody just chunking lyrics out there, and then when you hear somebody that really knows how to put the screws to a lyric,
right.
Just a difference in it. Thank you so much for being.
Yeah, man, of course. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. This will be fun.
Yeah. All right. So when did you write your first song? And to couch it in the way of, it's funny, I started asking, what fast food joint did you pay for your first Big Mac or Taco Bell with your first royalty check? Like, when did you know that it was more than just, I'm doing this for fun? Like, when did it become the next level, a step up for you?
Well, for me, first, my first song I ever wrote would be, I was probably a freshman or sophomore in college. Like I was I'd been in a band, and we started a band, and I grew up in Texas. I followed my youth pastor to a church in Florida after my dad passed away my freshman year in college. And and I guess I should say, like some of the lyrics to Imagine were kind of written down even back then, but as far as a full song, I never thought I would be a songwriter, never thought I would do this for a living. You may dream about it, but it's not like, there's not really a path for it, if you will. And so I moved to Florida to learn to be a youth pastor. And Mike, our guitar player, he's 2 years younger than me. He was a senior in high school in the youth group that I was working with. And he had just graduated, actually, the freshman in college. He just graduated. And one of his first projects, he had to present a song to some class, the college he was going to. And so I sat and wrote it with him, and just for a class project. And it was a song called, I'm embarrassed to say, All for the One Who Won for All.
Hey, that's brilliant, though, man.
Yeah. I guess the Three Musketeers was hot back then. But anyway, and so we wrote it. It was awful. But that was the very first thing I ever did. And then we kind of started playing in a live worship band. That was the first time I ever kind of played in a full, like a worship band or for youth groups on a Wednesday night back then. And that kind of evolved into what Mercy Me. We ended up becoming Mercy Me. That would have been like probably 92. And then we started Mercy Me in 94.
Wow.
So it all kind of happened pretty quickly. And then the first time that, as far as I realized, oh shoot, this is for real. When we started the band in 94, and then from 94 to about 2000, we signed our record deal in 2000, and we made 6 independent records. We had written several songs on those records, and a lot of them were covers, like cover worship songs, just so we could pay our bills during church camp, stuff like that. And
yeah.
But what's funny is, even through all that, I never had any idea about that you needed a publishing, sign up with ASCAP or whoever, and didn't know anything about that. So there were all these albums floating around, just no copyrights or anything, had no idea.
Wow.
And it wasn't until 99 when I wrote Imagine, was the first time, I think, after Amy Grant said she wanted it, I got advice, and they're like, hey dude, I know you said yes, but you need to hurry up and sign this stuff up. It's not even there was about a 7 or 8 month period where Imagine wasn't copywritten at all, which is insane.
Wow.
And so I got all that done, and we signed a record deal about the same time. And yeah, the first time that it was years before that when we started getting paid to do shows, whether it was, $20 or whatever. I thought, man, there's a chance. It wasn't to make it big. It was just to pay the next bill so I could do another show, is what it felt like.
Right.
Because I loved it so much. So that, that hit early on. But as far as writing a song and whatever first royalty check I got, maybe from Imagine or that first album we signed, was just hold up. You mean I get paid to do this too? Just had no idea. And so, yeah, it was and that part I never learned about until I started writing, and until we signed a deal and had to set up everything and realize it's kind of like, the way I compare it now is I see my kids, they're they hear that people on YouTube get paid, but they're not sure how it works. And they just keep making videos. I'm like, hey dude, you need to think this through. There's money you're not getting if you don't set it up right and stuff. So yeah, that was the first time I was like, oh man, this is amazing. And it wasn't even about how much the check was. It was just that I was getting paid. Anything to write a song blew my stinking mind. It's one thing to get paid to play live. That's I kind of knew about that part, but that a check, I know we all joke calling it mailbox money, that check would come because of something that, however long it took me, that I created, it blows my mind whenever it happens. Cause it's I think it's the greatest job in the world.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So was Imagine pretty much your first for real hit?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We released one song before Imagine. I'll never forget. We finished our album, and we agreed to give Amy the song, but we were also able to put our version as a B-side in our first record, but it wasn't going to be a single. It was going to be her single. And so our label convinced us that, I mean, like the Prayer of Jabez was popular back then. And so they thought you should do a Bless Me Indeed song, and, it'll be all the rage. And so we bought into it, and it's one of the worst songs. And it was our first single off that album. And I'm not even kidding. It didn't even chart top 50, which sounds impossible in Christian music, but we pulled it off. And,
that is awesome.
And, yeah, it was just awful. And so we were about to release our next song on that album. And that's when Amy reached out and was like, hey, this song's a career song. You need to finish what you started. So then we released it second. And that's when, it blew up. It's like, and we had, for us, it was a different kind of hit before, man. In our independent records, if we sold 1,000 CDs in a year, we were pretty happy because we knew we could pay our cell phone bill or whatever. Right. And then that independent project that Imagine was on before we ever signed sold about 140,000 copies that year. Wow. And that's back when it was $20 a pop and we didn't owe anybody anything. It was just out of the trunk of our car and shipping it to some bookstores or whatever, but that was on us. And we signed because it was killing us to try to ship. My wife and I were shipping CDs out of our garage to 400 bookstores, and just that part was killing us. So we needed help. And so we knew it was a special song, but it went, it was definitely, I mean, it's definitely our biggest hit. It's our career song, and we're fortunate to have other hits, but that one's like, that's just ridiculous what happened to that song.
Yeah. Where were you when you first heard it on the radio?
Oh man. Well, it depends. Like, I mean, we heard it on the radio. No, actually we didn't hear it on the radio when we were, oh yeah, we did. When we were independent, there were a couple of cities that was playing it. And the first time we ever heard it was, I grew up in Dallas or outside of Dallas, and the local station KLTY had this little kind of spotlight showcase independent band thing they did very briefly. It didn't last very long. And I remember one like late Sunday night, they played Imagine, talked about Mercy Me being from around there. And that would have been it was that same year, but right before we signed the record deal. And I remember freaking out. It wasn't regular play. It was literally one time they did it. And then, I'm calling all my band guys, it's on. Of course, by the time they got on there, it was done and never to be heard again until we signed like 2 or 3 years, till it came out like two years later or whatever. The craziest, once we signed and it kind of took off, the craziest place I ever heard it was we were doing a show in Vegas. They put us up in one of those hotels, like, I don't know what hotel it was, but where there's a casino on every first floor. We had to walk through the casino, get to our room, and all of a sudden I hear Imagine playing throughout all the speakers in the casino, which was really weird. Then I started seeing people like at the roulette table, like drunk people singing at full voice as they're playing.
Oh my gosh.
And so that was the craziest place I've ever seen it for sure.
That is priceless, man. That is priceless. I know in your testimony, you talk about the death of your dad and the relationship you guys had, and I'm sure that Imagine is probably up there, but is there other songs in your catalog that, maybe even unreleased or whatever, that just, really mean a lot to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people always ask, what's my favorite song? And, I love Imagine. I mean, it'd be hard not to say it's one of my favorites for a lot of different reasons, but as far as just like, and it's super special to me, but when you sing it a billion times, it kind of takes on a life of its own. And so the one that really hit me personally is probably still a song called Finally Home that we did several records ago. And that song was, we were in the studio and somebody reminded us that it was the 10-year anniversary of writing Imagine. And somehow it came up. And so we were talking about, it's like, wow, man, we're just looking back at how much our lives have changed because of that one song. And I mentioned how, man, it's crazy, everything that happened after my dad passed away. Like, I was just a punk 19-year-old kid when my dad died, and so much has changed, not only my career, but, being married with all these kids and everything. And I just thought, man, I think that he would be most proud of the man that I've turned out to be, more than just a success. And in that, started writing. Like, to me, Finally Home is almost like that closure to Imagine. Like, the first verse talks about, when I finally see my dad, I'm gonna, wrap my arms around him and stuff. And so because of that, and just I'll never forget just in writing that in the studio and how emotional it was, and that it's connected to Imagine personally. That's still one of my favorite songs we've ever written.
That's awesome, man. So for you, which comes first, the lyric or the melody, or both, or?
90% of the time, I would say the melody comes first.
Oh wow.
Um, I'm always last. Well, unless there's like if I hear a hook or I have something specific, the kind of the hook or like I'm always about kind of the wow factor. It needs to look good on a t-shirt. And so everything I write has some kind of like just the hook or the title, or there's a catchphrase or something. A lot of times I guess that technically probably comes first to motivate me to follow through. But man, I know at least these days, like, man, I'll just mumble through 20 different melodies trying to find something that feels great. And then it's the struggle with trying to get lyrics to fit that melody. That's where I've been lately. It hasn't, I don't know if it's always been that way. That's definitely how it's been the last few years. Like, just because, man, maybe you understand, but it's like, not that the melodies always mattered,
Yeah.
but man, where pop music is now, there's such an, it feels, I don't know, like, I mean, lyrics obviously matter in pop music, maybe not, doesn't matter as much, but
Yeah.
there's so much emphasis on the melody, like it's another instrument. And maybe it's always been that way. Or maybe I'm becoming aware of, like, man, I will hear a pop melody and I'll pick it apart. Like, man, why does that make me hate it? Because I sing it so much. And why does this fall flat and stuff? And it may have always been there and I'm just becoming aware of it. But man, I'm so fascinated with melodies, to where sometimes it's like, and it's, and I gotta be honest, writing Christian music, like I literally just the other day was telling Ryan Tedder, I was like, I just want you to know that Christian music is the hardest music to write because we have to play by all these stinking rules.
Right.
And it's like, and he was like, man, I actually kind of agree with you. And I don't, sometimes it's tough when you're like, there's something freeing for me just to sing the melody and not worry about, am I saying it right? Is it theologically correct? Are my fans going to be offended? All this kind of stuff, which is sadly a process you go through, to make, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I want my songs to be solid, but man, there is a freedom in just singing a melody going, yeah, this feels good. Because if it feels good without words, hopefully you're only going to make it better.
Right. Did Ryan write on this latest record you're doing?
No, like, yeah, well, yeah, well, here's what happened. So, I met Ryan, like, I literally have never known him until probably 2 months ago. Because of the movie, I started playing around with these, just like, it's almost like a hobby, these goofy, like, TV show ideas and stuff. Cause people have asked thinking that I made my movie, which I didn't, but they're just like, hey, you got any ideas? And just being a storyteller and, a creative, it's just like, it was kind of a fun outlet just to goof off with. But I would just write them down, but never really show anybody. And so a friend of mine who is also kind of a day-to-day or works with media stuff with One Republic, I was telling him about this idea I had. And apparently, Ryan does Songland, has some shows on NBC that he sold. And somehow he told him about it. And all of a sudden, Ryan reached out and said, hey, man, I'm fascinated with the show idea. And I never met him. I still haven't met him in person. I've just been on Zoom. And so we went through a stint of kind of trying to figure the show out. Like, he wanted to try to get it to NBC or whatever. And it was kind of like The Office, but with the church staff, basically. And, yeah, and it would have been amazing, but it kind of fell through because NBC was scared of the church thing. That's a side note. But anyway, that aside, we just kind of kept talking. And when I was telling him, I was like, hey, man, just this album is frustrating because there is a weird kind of fine line between what I feel like is current pop music, but then you don't want to, how can I somehow speak truth, what's truth to me, but not sound corny, that fine line, you know what I mean, of being both. And he was like, man, you ought to send me something you're working on. So I sent him this one song, and it just because he wanted to hear it. And then he sent a voicemail back, and he was like, hey, man, can you send me the vocal and just the tracks and let me play with it? And I was like, oh, shoot, are you for real? Like, that was never a part of the conversation. So I sent him the rough, and he just tweaked, like, man, I think I can make it a little stickier if you sing this note here. So he would kind of sing over my melody and change a few things here and there. And it was totally just like out of the blue, never saw it coming. and so, but it was so cool. Like the tiniest changes changed everything. Like and that's the part I was talking about. Like, man, the most subtle changes in the pop melody stuff was like, why didn't I think of that? And so anyway, so no, technically no, he didn't write. Like, I'm even like, how do I credit you on this? And he was like, won't even let me do anything. It's like, so anyway, so yeah, yes and no. Like, it wasn't planned, and
It went through his
came,
compressor, but wasn't
yeah,
actually. Yeah, I get it.
yeah. So I mean, his voice is on there, but it sounds like he's a bass vocal the way he's singing it. He's just such a nice guy. I don't think he wants anything, but but I'm like, hey, forget paying you. I just want to tell people you helped on this song. I want to brag.
Yeah, he's a talented guy, man.
He's insane, man. Like, I mean, honestly, I was looking through, so I was like, he's got to be one of the biggest songwriters in the world right now. Like, he is everywhere.
Yeah, man.
So
Diane
yeah.
Warren in the 90s. Like
no doubt.
Every huge hit came out.
Yeah. And then he has an amazing band and one of the dumbest voices ever, which just makes him like, just want to hate him. Yeah. And he's a good looking dude. I hate him.
Yeah, man. He's got it all, man.
Yeah, he does.
So, who are your influences, heroes?
From a songwriting, well, my absolute hero is Jeff Lynne from ELO. That's my guy, dude. Like, it was the first band that my brother, who's 5 years older, ever introduced me to when I was a kid. Like, I heard the Beatles later, but like, for me, ELO was the Beatles because I got to them first. And I've always loved Jeff Lynne's voice. I love his writing. I've loved his producing with the Traveling Wilburys. Like, everything he does, I've always been a fan of. And I mean, there's a ton of people. Like, I love so much kind of music, Al Green, you name it, U2 and a lot of the obvious ones. But, when it all comes down to it, like, if I have a very short list of people I wish I could meet, and Jeff would be at the top of the list. And part of me hopes it doesn't happen because I don't want to be a jerk or whatever. Be so sad.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like, definitely meeting your heroes is not always what it's cracked up to be.
Totally.
So is it for you? Is it easier to write with like a goal in mind, or are you one of those kind of people that, you're going to be prolific and just write, even if it didn't matter,
No, dude, it's funny because for me overall, like, I love the result, but writing's hard for me because it's typically me going to a painful place in my life, and it's not always very fun. I love the result, but like, I will avoid it like the plague at times because I call it being a cave writer. I have to go in and write. No one can see or hear it until I'm finished. Wow. Like, I'm the guy, if I'm in a co-write in a room, I'm in the corner, like, give me 1 second. And you're like, come on, let me help you. No, I got it. And then I may throw it out there and be a horrible idea, but I have to finish my thought.
Yeah.
And so my wife knows that when it's time to start writing, she knows I'm kind of going to kind of disappear and go after it. I know guys that write nonstop. I don't know how they do it. I'm jealous of them, but it's usually, if there are 12 songs due for a record, I typically will write maybe 13, and that's it. And they are going on there. And when I say, not that I'm always writing hits, it's more of like, if it doesn't, I think Tom Hanks said, man, all we've really got is our gut, our instinct. And like he said, he'll read a script, and if his gut's like, yeah, this is it, he goes, I go for it. And he goes, if I ever lose my instinct, then I'm in trouble. And I kind of relate because, like, I may start a song and do a first couple of lines or whatever, and if it turns me off or doesn't do anything for me, I will literally move on. Like, I'm not the guy that goes, it may take a year to get this one right. No, I'll pass. So when I say 12 or 13 songs, that's possibly going through several that didn't make it through like the first couple of lines. Like, and it may just be a groove. If I hear a groove that I love, I will stick with it and write it. But there's just got to be something that's like, yes, this is worth doing. This is worth doing. And so I guess it's not fair to say I only write 13 songs. Let's say that things get voted off the island pretty early to where I get to those 12 or 13. And then, so so it's sometimes a challenge. I have found more joy in jumping in, like I said, working strictly on the melody, and then I'll, kind of do the lyrics later, but I still drag my feet doing that. Like, literally The only time it's ever changed was right now. We started this album we're on currently. The process started over 2 years ago. We got together, started writing. We had some producer changes, and then and just we were super busy right after the movie, and so we just dragging our feet forever. And then when we were supposed to release it, like our first single was Almost Home for this album, which was released last November. By the time this album comes out, our first single will be a year and a half old.
Wow.
It's so crazy. Yeah. And so it was supposed to, that song came out last November. The album was going to come out either the fall or this spring, and then the pandemic hit. And then we kind of like just hit the brakes. I was like, and I know you know how this feels, but when you finish a song or an album, there's this weird kind of depression that happens right after it's done. It's like the day after Christmas. It's like, now what do I do? And I can't imagine how bad that would be during the pandemic. And so we literally stretched it out on purpose just to have something to do. And in that, literally, like for the first time in my life, we've written almost 50 songs. And
Wow.
and so never experienced that ever in my life. And I thought, wow, this is great, man. It's 50 songs. Well, then when it's time to start picking for the record, it was like throwing children overboard. It was like, which one do I not use? That was the worst of it all. Cause obviously if I finished them, I thought there's something special to them, to where we even talked about releasing 3 or 4 albums, like one every year. And we still don't know what we're going to do with it. But that was the worst feeling, was narrowing it down.
Wow.
And so we've narrowed it down to 14 or 15 songs on the first record. And still, like, it's supposed to be handed down November 16th. And I've still got like 4 more songs to write. Like I should be done, but I'm like literally writing it and singing a vocal because I will wait till the last minute because, lyrics, they're not a beat down. It's just, I'm very critical and I'm really hard on myself when it comes to writing lyrics. And sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't.
You've always come across to me as the kind of person that really does care, if the Bible piece to your lyric is correct. And I
Yeah.
Anybody can throw down, a salad's worth of lyric,
Yeah.
but to really to do a filet mignon lyric, not to get culinary on it.
It's challenging too, because like, you're talking about, like there's this big worship movement that, that I love. I think it's amazing. But, you do come across songs that, it may be straight scripture out of the Bible that they just put to music, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's still, there's something of, there's a difference between a well-crafted worship song and then some that are like, almost like you're not allowed to say that it's not that great because like it's straight scripture or whatever, but there's something, whether it's melody or hook, or there's something that's like, I don't know why I don't connect with this like I do other things. Nothing wrong with the song. I'm assuming there are people that connect with it great. Or it may be the one that wrote it. It may be they're the only one that's supposed to connect with it. Who cares? It's a song. It can do whatever it wants. But there is it's for me, like I do find a little bit of joy in trying to be a little, what's the word? Like almost clever with some of the lyrics, like a little, just, you can say it directly or just find some other way to kind of, I don't know. You're telling a 2,000-year-old story, and of several times over.
Right.
Maybe there's a different way to say it this time, and that's all. And so it's harder to find that in worship because worship is very straightforward, as it should be. But there are sometimes you hear one that blows your mind, and then sometimes you're like, huh, like I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical, but it's funny because where music is like, I enjoy trying to find a clever way to get a point across. And so like, it's kind of just a different time, man. Worship's such a big thing, and I'm so grateful for it. Like, it's been a huge part of my own life personally, but it's like, sometimes I'm like, man, there are still clever songwriters out there, like, and there's still a place for them. They've got to be out there doing this. But it feels like the market's absolutely shifted, and that's great. It's fine. You'll hear a song going, yeah, man, that was, yeah, Nice job. That you nailed that one. I didn't see that one coming or whatever. And
Yeah.
whenever you grab that and you land the melody and the groove and the lyric all lines up, man, there's nothing like it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, I'm sure there's millions of reasons why great songs don't get written. A lot of
Yeah,
times, out of the haste of making a record, or out of the haste of, hey, I just had the biggest worldwide smash of all time. I have to follow it up with something. And
sure.
it's like it took me. I've talked to a lot of artists about this, but like, their first record will be unbelievable, and then their follow up record won't be as unbelievable. It's because it took 20 years
To make the first one.
make the first one, and the second
Yeah.
one you did in the
18
studio.
months.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it's hard to like you say, it's hard to always go to that deep, dark place, of
Yeah.
pulling from something to, and two, I learned this when I came, it took me probably honestly 20 years to learn this. Not that I assume everyone is like me, but I never thought, like, there are people that are great songwriters. This is a weird thing to say, but there are people that are great songwriters, but they're not necessarily great at writing songs. Like, they're great at marketing themselves,
Yeah.
or they're great at putting themselves in business places, or they're great
Right.
at networking or something like that. And like, that was always, there are some people who are just natural politicians.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person. It's like I gravitate to the people who I can feel their pain
Right.
in the song.
Yeah, you're right. There are some great business people that can push an average song through. And then there are that are still songwriters. And then there are people that write some of the most amazing songs ever that will rarely get heard because, it's, whether they're a tortured soul or whatever, it's just like that's not why they're doing it. It's not the opportunity to make a business move. It's just from the very depths of their heart. And it's like, and there's a lot of times that some big artists will catch wind of that song and make it huge,
Right,
and it's, but
right.
but
And
yeah,
then
I mean,
there's the talent
and
to
it,
doing that.
yeah, it takes all kinds. It was like somebody the other day was talking about how, and it was a friend of mine who was definitely kind of that super artisty kind of like, alone in their principles kind of guy. And he was talking about how he can't stand pop music because it's like shooting fish in a barrel and it's so easy. And I was like, dude, I said, nothing is further from the truth. I mean, it's short for popular music. You're trying to write something that appeals to everyone. I said, it's easy to get in the corner and write this deep, heady thing that if no one likes it, well, it's just because they're not on the same level. But you try to write something that everyone, or you're trying to get everyone to appeal to, it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
And, I love pop music for that reason. I think it's fascinating. It is sometimes pulling it back and simplifying things. And in fact, I would say worship is kind of like our version of pop music. The reason that worship music can't go, super heady or whatever is because you have to appeal to the whole church. And not only that, sing along
Right.
and be in a way that can read on a screen and everybody sings it. So you've got melodies and lyrics and everything has to be, attainable. And so you talk about, you have a certain amount of rules just to write Christian music. Well, now you've got even more rules to write a catchy worship song. And so, I feel for them, man. It's a tough place to be, but those that do it well, I mean, that's the thing is like, hey, give them a smaller space, less tools, and let them find a way out. That's a pretty brilliant songwriter.
Yeah. I've always said you will always have a career if you can write an up-tempo Christian song and an up-tempo Christmas song.
That's so true. Yes.
Yeah, because that's the hardest song to write is up-tempo Christmas.
Yeah.
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 Mariah.
We've tried several times.
Yeah, Mariah Carey, all I want for. I mean, dude, that will always be at the top because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. If
crazy.
you can write any successful new Christmas music, you'll be okay.
Oh yeah, yes. What is a song that you love that you're like, man, I wish I would have written that.
Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain by Willie Nelson
There you
is
go.
one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. And if you ever get a chance, go to YouTube and look up Willie. Willie sings it with his two sons, and his oldest son sounds just like him. And it brings me to tears every time just to hear them harmonize and sing that song together. It's so, so gorgeous. But Yeah, that'd be the first one that comes to mind, man.
Wow.
And there's so much attached to that. My dad loved it. There, I have so many memories with it, and I just think it's one of the most beautiful songs ever written.
Wow. Wow. Willie Nelson.
Heck yeah.
Do you know Don Poitras?
I don't think so. The name sounds familiar.
He's a writer or whatever. He got a it's crazy. He got a Willie Nelson cut.
Mm,
Went through the whatever, you know what I mean, just out of, and
dang.
they sent him and Willie and Sheryl Crow did a duet on
Jeez.
the CMT Crossroads or whatever. And
Yeah.
Willie said, "Okay, Cheryl, whatever song of mine you want to sing, we'll do that one or whatever." She picked the Don Poitras song.
Dang.
He's
Dang.
watching Sheryl Crow and Willie Nelson sing his song, and you're just
That's
like,
amazing. Yeah. No doubt.
yeah,
Shoot. And
I got,
Willie's one of the greatest songwriters ever. And he picks one of your songs. That's insane.
yeah, that is insane. So, your top 3 desert island records.
Oh man. Um, Jamie Cullum, 20 something.
Okay.
Um, I would have to go with, man, probably I would have it. Probably I've got to go with Joshua Tree. I have to.
Okay.
And then shoot. Trying to think what I'm gonna need on that island. Probably as far as the album I listen to the most by far, according to Spotify and Apple Music stuff, is the Mills Brothers anthology, which is like 40s crooner music.
Wow.
It plays in my house nonstop. So I think it's safe to say that I would need that close by if I'm on a desert island.
Awesome.
Like these are the guys that taught like Dean Martin grew up watching, and like
Right.
they're insane. It's so good.
Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, kind of a break from the norm. Okay,
Yeah.
is there a hero that you have met? Do you have any funny stories from the road or meeting a hero or any co-write stories
Yeah, I mean,
that you can
like
tell?
yeah, sure. Like you mentioned, like I've always been a huge Sheryl Crow fan. Like always, like she's amazing. And so, gosh, a couple of years ago, we did I was asked to be a part of a Scott Hamilton, a figure skater, does this thing, this kind of like has all these people come sing, and these figure skaters do a whole routine for it's a benefit show for his trying to cure cancer thing. And so I was asked to be a part of it. And so didn't know much about it. Got there, and like Cheryl's a good friend of Scott, so her and her band hosted the show with Scott, and it was like and so I got the email that I was coming. Scott's a good friend of mine. He's like, yeah. He goes, so Steve Cropper from the Blues Brothers and all that kind of stuff will be there, and he named all these guys, and some of the guys from the Stax Horns in Memphis are going to be there. And it was like, what is happening? And he goes, and Steve's guy didn't make it, and Steve wrote Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, Holding On, I'm Coming, Soul Man, you name it. And he was like, can you, his singer didn't come, and this is the night before, I need you to sing Hold On, I'm Coming, I believe is what it was, with Steve Cropper and Sheryl Crow's band. And I'm just like, what? This is the night before. Dude, I thought I was going to throw up all night. I was so freaking nervous. Because then I was like, trying to memorize the words. Don't screw this up, Bart. Like, I mean, just all night. Like, that's my biggest fear is I can't remember anything. Then I get there and find out there's massive teleprompters. I should have asked, so I didn't have to work so hard. But I remember getting in sound check, and we were supposed to do Imagine, Even If, and then I think I was going to sing that song. And so that story's crazy. I got through sound check, did the song. It went fine. Steve Cropper's like right next to me playing, just staring at me to sing. I thought I was going to die. But then after sound check, Sheryl comes up to me and goes, hey, she goes, I just want you to know that she goes, with the whole cancer stuff she went through, she goes, for her and her sister, she said, Even If has become our anthem. She goes, I listen to it every day. And I was like, what? And she goes, would you be offended if I sang it with you tonight during the show? And I was like, are you kidding me? And so I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what to say. So we get up there and we start singing, and she walks up. And what's crazy to me is that there's teleprompters. I'm thinking, yeah, she'll get through it. She never opened her eyes once and knew every single word and sang it full voice. And so that was like, man, that was a moment for me. It was just like, and I couldn't take my eyes off of her singing with her eyes shut, because I'm thinking she's going to kind of stumble through. She doesn't know it real well, right? Good thing we have a teleprompter. I think I messed up the words and she didn't.
Wow.
And so that was an unbelievable moment of just like, where am I? Why am I here? Like, it's like, it's all of these country artists and all these different pop people, and then I'm here, and Sheryl Crow politely asked if she could sing with me. And so that was, that's one of my highlights for me.
Wow. So do you ever get used to being a celebrity? Or, like I grew up in a town of about 8,000 people. Okay.
Right.
Little town in Alabama. And, I've been nominated for Grammys and won some Doves and some ASCAP awards and had songs on the radio. And, and there are people that look at me like, oh man, you've made it, or you know what I mean? And I'm like, dude,
right.
like I go to Kroger, nobody knows who I am. You know what I mean? Like, no, you know what I mean? But I mean, even you, it's like, man, you've been on some huge stages, and, being a celebrity for, I don't understand that journey. Like, to me, it seems like, from what I know of you and just the times we've hung out or whatever, like you seem to carry it very well. You seem like a normal dude that just so happens to be really famous. You know what I mean?
And I don't see it that way as far as like the celebrity thing. Like, I'm as normal as you. I always say there's guys that are artists and there's guys that really love sports and happen to sing and write music. That's me. It's like, I'm just a goofball that happens to do this. And so when people, I probably come across rude, and I don't mean to, but when people recognize me, it doesn't happen a ton. It's more of like, just kind of like almost like, man, I'm nobody. Like, I probably look like I'm real standoffish, and I'm not. I'm just like, no, it's never going to be comfortable. I try to be nice and stuff, but I keep to myself. And the only part about, if there's any kind of celebrity to it, would be that I get to be asked to sing like with a Sheryl Crow. That part's pretty stinking cool. But as far as running into people, like, I'm not a fan of doing meet and greets, not because I don't like people. I just kind of think it's like, man, yeah, if y'all need to raise the bar a little higher if I'm the guy you want to meet. And I will say that when the movie came out is the craziest it got. And I overall didn't really enjoy it that much. It wasn't bad, but it was like, I've never seen anything on that level. Like, even with Imagine going to mainstream years ago and stuff, it's like the pace of how movies blow up and then kind of fizzle out, if you will. Like, it's where we'll spend, a year and a half, 2 years promoting a record several times over. There's about a 9 to 10 week window to where you hit it so hard and the response is there, and then it kind of goes to home video and kind of goes back to normal. It's crazy. But even in that short window, you hit it so hard, and the response you get, and the people, the things that are asked of you and all this stuff, it's like, I don't know if I'd wish it on my worst enemy, because I don't know how like movie people do that on a regular basis, or maybe that's why they take years off in between, because it's exhausting, just what's asked of you. And yeah, it's just a weird thing. But overall, it's like, man, I keep to myself, hang out in my house. I mean, now that when I lived in Greenville, kind of like you, a small town, it was kind of different. And that's part of the reason why we moved to Nashville, because, it's like, there's a reason we all we can go to Kroger here and not be a big deal, and I think that's, it's that whole birds of a feather flock together. I don't know, but in fact, I think I saw you at a Publix. It was the last time I saw you. Like,
Thompson. Yeah. And I'm saying, that's not Bart. That can't be, Yeah. You remember, Joel West, right? He was, I know Joel. He was in on Rodeo Drive one time, him and his wife, Ariane, and they were in this store shopping, and the manager of the store and somebody else shut the door really quick, and they're like freaking out because they don't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there's all the security that comes around or whatever, and they look over, and Michael Jackson is in the store.
Oh, no way.
And he's like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Because he's like, I have to go say, you know what I mean? So he got Michael
That's
Jackson's
awesome.
autograph. I mean, it was
No
really,
way.
yeah, yeah. And he said he was like
Wow.
the sweetest guy and just easygoing. It was even on TMZ. Joel's on
Wow.
TMZ meeting
That's
Michael Jackson.
crazy.
Yeah, and I'm like,
One of my funniest stories as far as like any kind of celebrity was my wife, some of her sorority sisters came to town. This was like maybe about a little over a year ago. And my wife was like, hey, we had this big like van. I got 5 kids. So we had like a Sprinter van that we travel in. She's like, hey, they want you to take them around to see famous people's houses. I was like, man, I don't know any, and no lie, like just between you and me and whoever's watching this podcast, I pointed at houses that aren't famous going, that's Dolly Parton's house. That's Keith Urban. I just started making crap up. Like, how are they going to know? Right. And so they thought I was hot stuff. Well, all I really had, I thought, you know what, we'll go to Eat at Puckett's at Leapers Fork. They'll love that. You know, like who doesn't love that? So we go and there's live music. So we're sitting in the back and watching and stuff. And so we get up and I'm thinking like, you know, like, cause they haven't seen anybody famous, but they think they see everybody. There's like a big day and they think I'm hot stuff. And I'm sitting there kind of feeling bad because I haven't showed them anything. And we're leaving and this lady stops me and her family. And she goes, excuse me. And I was like, yeah. And there hasn't been an ounce of anybody recognizing me. She goes, I'm so embarrassed to bother you, but can I get a picture with my family? And so I'm like, well, like I'm a little extra to show off to my sorority friends. Like, look at this. Like, yeah, you know, and so this is the best part. The lady gets in with me and she's trying to find somebody to take the picture. And she goes, oh, ma'am, can you take our picture real quick? She goes, sure thing. It was Reba McEntire that took our picture. and so the family never recognized her. And so, and what's funny is I've met Reba through the Doves because of her gospel record stuff. And so she knew who I was. And we've met once. And we've met, I knew who she was. And I'm freaking out, but I didn't know if she did. And so she takes the picture and kind of hands it back to me. And she leans over and goes, Bart 1, Reba 0. And I was like, that's amazing. I was like, she knew my freaking name. It's such a great story. And she was such a good sport. And no one ever spotted her. She had a hat on and stuff. And nobody, like, she just did it like a champ. And I was like, man. And so I waited till she was long gone. And I was like, Reba took that picture. And I really got some bonus points there that night.
That is awesome.
Only in Nashville.
Only in Nashville, man. Only in Nashville. Yeah, that's hilarious. So, do you do anything besides writing? You know, do you dance?
Yes, I do. A lot of interpretive dance.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, anything like that's another creative outlet besides music.
The TV stuff kind of fell in my lap, and it's kind of become a little therapeutic, just coming up with ideas. Nothing. I don't have any skins on the wall, nothing like that, but it's just kind of like, I think Amy Grant told me years ago, she's like, take up painting, do something, because it'll make you a better songwriter if you can step away from it. And so, you know, other than playing golf every once in a while and being married with 5 kids, that's probably the closest. Like if I'm not doing music or watching Sports Center, I'll start just writing down these random ideas. I used to be a comic book nerd in college and high school. And so there's been little things that'll probably never see the light of day, of literally like coming up with like this sounds so nerdy, comic book worlds and stories and stuff like that have been so therapeutic and really just for me, I guess. And so I find myself jotting that stuff down quite a bit, but that's probably about it. I mean, well, I say right now I've been working on a record for 2 years, so I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing after this, but
right.
Yeah, it's been fun to that's me stepping away and doing something differently.
Just kind of wrapping up. I don't want to keep you. Do you have any just like last advice to the writer sphere out there, just to go, you know, hey man, I learned this, you know, or something that just really impressed upon you that you can go, you know, this helped me, or, you know, just the last parting shot to the, you know, to the writer.
I mean, I would say, you know, and nothing against it. There are guys that in Nashville that, I mean, you're one of them that could just crank them out. And it always blew my mind. And it was like, I part of me was jealous that wasn't able to kind of, I think of like Matthew West and these guys that are just, they can write them at one after another and affect and good. And it was so maddening. And I think maybe for me, it's like it's just follow your gut. I mean, like sometimes we talk ourselves out of some amazing songs before anybody ever hears them. And it's like, I guess it's kind of philosophical, but when I was in high school, I would, after school, I would go to my church because my dad wouldn't get off work till it's like middle school. My dad wouldn't get off work till like 5 or 6. So I'd go to the church in between. I would go in the sanctuary and I would sit at the piano because I loved how the whole sanctuary echoed. And I would just try to play and sing with nobody around. And one day my pastor was watching me through the little window in like the side door. And I kind of caught him and I was kind of embarrassed. And he walked in and he said, man, he said, if you can figure out a way to peel back your chest and show people your heart like you're doing with nobody in here, people will follow you anywhere.
Wow.
And as a songwriter, I think sometimes we some people write and they're almost like they're protecting something. And, transparency is one of the biggest weapons we have. And I think if we can figure that out and you write from your heart, it's like, it's not even, sometimes we start asking, will everyone like this? And we talk ourselves off the ledge. And it's like, man, when it comes to writing a song, the only person that matters is you in that room.
Wow.
And it's like, when those moments come, you'll be shocked of how people are like, I resonate with that. Not only because the song's good, because I believe in the guy that wrote it. And so it's so much about the person writing as is the song. Like we can all write cookie cutter good songs, but those ones that count, those evergreen moments are the ones that hit something inside of you as the writer. And I think we absolutely need more of that always.
I couldn't have said it better, brother. That's awesome. Well, man, blessings to you. Can't wait to hear the new record.
Yeah, man, I will. Me too. I can't wait to hear it too.
That's awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you so much, man. Thank you for coming to my little episode here, and I'll shoot it to you when we're done, and you can go, hey, man, edit all that out. You know what I mean?
Hey, anytime, man. I just came across a folder of those country songs we wrote 10 million years ago, like Lord willing, the creek don't rise until you.
Yeah, man.
And they're still great. I mean, it's a different era. It's like the Tim and Faith era of country music, but they're still great. I actually tried to pitch the Lord willing, but then I think Lady Antebellum, Little Big Town did one that was similar hook. And it kind of bummed me out because I always thought that song had something. Absolutely. I still do. But yeah, anyway.
Well, cool, man. Well, blessings to you. We'll talk soon. And say,
all right, buddy, take care.
Guys for me.
I'll do it. Absolutely, Sam. Yeah. Take care, man.
You too.